Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Talks Games. February Nintendo Direct. There's a lot of rumors going around right now that there will be one, although frankly I don't think you really need rumors to tell you that there will be a February Direct. There's almost always a February Direct. If you look back throughout the entire Nintendo Switch generation for Nintendo, the only time they didn't have a February showcase was, 2020, and, well, we kind of know what happened there. So I think it's pretty much a guarantee that we get a February Nintendo Direct for Switch 1 games this year, even though, all eyes are on that April 2nd showcase for the Switch 2. I think there's still enough in the canister for them to deliver a pretty meaty Nintendo Direct. I guess that's the first question. Will it be a general Direct? Will it be a mini? Or will it be a partner? I've seen a lot of people saying, well, it's probably just going to be a partner showcase. That's what we had last year in 2024. And even though it was a pretty good partner showcase, right? It ended on a first-party game being Endless Ocean Luminous. It was still a partner, and people definitely are still feeling some type of way about partner showcases. I think they've gotten pretty good over the years, but I think overall people would be pretty disappointed if it was a partner. I just don't think that where we are right now with Nintendo, with their current 2025 lineup, a partner showcase really makes sense. They're not going to go cold turkey on Switch 1 games. It feels like ever since mid-2023, when a lot of people really started expecting the Switch 2 to get announced and released, way before it's happening, right? People keep doubting the Switch 1. This was especially true in June of last year, where everybody was pretty much in agreement a new Mario Party was coming out. And then a lot of people thought there'd be some sort of Zelda game, maybe not necessarily a new 2D Zelda game. Nobody thought there would also be a Mario and Luigi game on top of that. It feels like every time people think the Switch is done, the Switch 1 is done getting new games, Nintendo surprises us with way more than we were expecting, and I think that's going to be true this time as well. I think this February Direct will be a full general Direct. There's a lot to talk about, not just from first party, but also a lot of third parties that have to update their games. Level 5 being a major component here, but something like Professor Layton. But, you look at Xenoblade X, you look at Prime 4, and then you look at this huge slate of rumored games for the Switch 1 and all these different possible announcements. When you look at a lot of Nintendo's developers and studios they partner with, I think there's a lot of stuff that's ready to go. And I guess the question at that point will be, well, is Camelot working on a Switch 1 game or a Switch 2 game? Because this is the longest they've gone without releasing a game. Is the next Mario Sports going to be some sort of, baseball game or an all-star collection kind of thing like they've done in the past on 3DS and Wii? Or will it be a Switch 2 game like Mario Tennis for Switch 2? Because Camelot is certainly one that could have a game ready to show this time. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The point I'm trying to make here is that even though the Switch 2 is imminent, right? We're getting that big showcase in April. We're probably going to see the thing release in May or June. I still think there's a lot to announce for Switch 1. And I guess the first question we really need to ask ourselves is, well, if we are getting a February Direct, which we almost certainly are, when will it actually be? Well, just looking at the calendar, I feel like it's either going to be on the 5th or the 6th, or the 12th or the 13th. Nintendo's financials, I believe, they're on the 4th or the 5th of February. I wouldn't even be surprised if, as part of that, they're going to get a lot of questions about the Switch 2 now that it's official. As part of their financial kind of briefing, I wouldn't be surprised if during that they say, hey, stay tuned next week for a Switch 1 focused Nintendo Direct. We get the "This is for Akawa" tweet on Twitter at midnight again. And they're just like, hey, we hear you. You want more Switch 1 games? We're going to have a Direct on, let's say, February 12th or the 13th. One of those days in that range. I do think that's around the latest it would be, though, because if it's on the 13th, let's say that's a Thursday, it might be a little bit earlier than that. That's still 2 weeks before Pokemon Day, and we already kind of know there will be a Pokemon Presents. I just think you want to have as much gap in between those things. So you have a Direct, let's say the 12th or the 13th. Next week you have maybe even the release of a new game if it gets announced and shadow dropped or has a quick turnaround on the eShop or something. And then a week later you have your Pokemon Presents. You don't want to have those presentations, butting heads too much. So I really do think the 12th or the 13th, or maybe it'd be the first week, maybe it'd be the 5th or the 6th, but I think them announcing it at their investor meeting kind of makes sense, and then we see it the following week. So I do think that's when we'll get it, right before Valentine's Day. Perfect thing to watch with your sweetheart, some new Nintendo announcements. And then, yeah, for the main topic of the video, what games could pop up in this thing? I mean, really, the sky is the limit. I feel like, even though I know, like I said, a lot of people want to, write off the Switch as being done, the reality is I think there's still quite a bit more coming. Even if it is mostly remakes and remasters, it's still exciting to see what old franchises Nintendo will decide to revive. You know, last year we saw Another Code and a Famicom Detective Club game and Endless Ocean. What kind of weird stuff might they do this time? But before we start talking about new announcements, games we don't actually know about, there's still a lot to talk about in terms of old games that we already do know about, like Xenoblade Chronicles X. We still have like no information on the new story expansion content for that game. I feel like that is almost a certainty that it will pop up in this direct, and we'll get a nice meaty, maybe even like, you know, like deep dive trailer on that. If it is going to be maybe even a lighter Nintendo Direct in terms of first party announcements, which I don't think it will be, but if it was, then maybe Xenoblade X gets like a big showcase in this thing, because it still hasn't popped up in a Nintendo Direct. It's good to market these things in as many directs as possible. So Xenoblade X will definitely be there. Metroid Prime 4, I mean, this one kind of depends on if it's going to be a Switch 2 game, because I feel like if it's a Switch 2 game, they might save it, but also this would be a really good way to get I don't want to say more casual, because if you're watching a Nintendo Direct, you're probably not a casual Nintendo fan, but if they want to like really remind people about Switch 2, if Prime 4 has a cross-gen version, you know, maybe showing Prime 4 here is still the right move, because then you can say what you just saw was Metroid Prime 4, but it is also coming to Switch 2, so get excited for that. They can plug the April Switch 2 Direct there. I think that's a good idea, if that game is indeed cross-gen, which I do think it will be. And ultimately, it is still a Switch 1 game. We know it's a Switch 1 game. They showed it for Switch 1 last year. It'd be really weird if they didn't show it here. If they don't show it, I mean, I think that with certainty would very clearly make it a Switch 2 game at that point, or at least a cross-gen game. But I do think they'll show it here, and I do like the idea of them maybe kind of teasing, like, yeah, it is going to be a Switch 2 game, like we knew about with Breath of the Wild for so long. Before we even saw Breath of the Wild like at E3 that year, you know, we got the big Treehouse demos and all the hours and hours of footage we all scoured over. Before we even got that, we knew Zelda was coming to the NX. It'd be kind of cool if at this time they show Metroid Prime 4, we get like a really nice trailer for it. Maybe we don't get a release date, but they say, hey, coming to Switch 2, stay tuned for more information in the Switch 2 showcase. I could see that happening. And as for third-party stuff that we already know about, Professor Layton and the New World of Steam is currently slated for this year. Level 5 has been a mess recently, but I do feel like Professor Layton, we have to see it again, and we have to get a release date. If it's not shown in this Direct, I think that would pretty clearly indicate it's a 2026 game. But that's one I think we could definitely see here. Alongside stuff like Inazuma 11, we could get a more concrete date for that, as well as, I think Fantasy Life is slated for April, but I don't think it has an exact date. I could be wrong on that, so maybe we see more Fantasy Life. Deca Police is next year. We don't need to see that right now. But really, Professor Layton, that's potentially one of the bigger Switch exclusives this year. Even though Nintendo isn't publishing it, it's still a game that is exclusive to Switch. People view Professor Layton as a Nintendo thing. And then Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake, the HD 2D remaster. We got 3 last year, did really well in Japan, sold extremely well. We don't know when the remakes of 1 and 2 are coming out, but those are announced for 2025, and Square Enix, as of right now, has nothing on the board for this year, especially now that Rebirth is out on PC. So Square Enix calendar completely empty. It is definitely time to see something from them. At the very least, I would expect a release date for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD, even if it's later in the year, even if they, you know, replicate that release date of having it be in November. I could see them announcing that here. But also, you know, as we transition into new announcements, I think Square Enix could have quite a few things there as well. Something that I've been waiting years for is some sort of Final Fantasy 13 collection that has all 3 games. They're like the only Final Fantasy games missing from modern platforms. I feel like that's a shoe-in at some point. I feel like it should have already happened. So maybe something along those lines could pop up from Square Enix. But more importantly, Team Asano. Now, this is what I was kind of talking about earlier. We need to figure out if it makes more sense for these teams to release games on the Switch 1 or the Switch 2, because Team Asano, of course, being the Bravely Default developers, they're ready to go. It's been a while since Bravely Default 2 came out, and even Octopath Traveler came out in 2023, and usually they're getting one of these types of games out like every year or 18 months or so. They were teasing a new announcement and release for 2024, and 2024 came and went, and we never heard a peep from them, which maybe would indicate that it is a Switch 2 thing if the Switch 2 was delayed from 2024, although I don't really think it was. But Team Asano, could they have a Switch 1 game? Maybe even that is just a remaster of the 3DS games, Bravely Default and Bravely Second, some sort of collection there from Square Enix would be cool. And that is like a perfect Switch 1, I don't want to say calendar filler, I'd be very excited to play those games finally, but something like that from Square Enix, that would actually be a Nintendo published game. I think that makes sense for Switch 1 in 2025, but even potentially maybe a new game, although I think based on how software has been selling on Switch 1, maybe you would want to say Bravely Default 3 for Switch 2, kind of make it a bigger deal on there, but some sort of collection for sure of the 3DS games I think we could see here. But talking more about like actual proper Nintendo first party stuff, Kirby Planet Robobots has been talked about for so long now. Even before the rumors were happening of this game coming from Nate the Hate, I was talking about Planet Robobots. I was also talking about Triple Deluxe, and I'm definitely sad to see Triple Deluxe potentially getting looked over, because I think that is a great game as well. It's not as good as Planet Robobot, but something Kirby, man. Even let's say the rumors are wrong and they don't do the logical next thing after Return to Dreamland, which is a Triple Deluxe or Planet Robobot remake or remaster. We gotta get a Kirby game, man. This is the longest we've gone, which is funny to say because it's only been 2 years, but 2 years is a long time in the Kirby community, man. We normally get at least a game a year, sometimes multiple a year. So for us to go a full 24 months without a release is absolutely nuts. So whether it's Planet Robobot, which is what rumors would indicate, whether it's Triple Deluxe, whether it's Epic Yarn getting a second remaster, or maybe some sort of new eShop game, there has to be a Kirby game in this showcase. I would be flabbergasted if there is not. I was flabbergasted when there wasn't one in the June Direct last year, because even then, at that point, I was saying it's really weird that we've gone, at that point, 18 months without a Kirby game. We are definitely overdue, and if we get Planet Robobot this year, let's say that's an April release, that still paves the way for a new Kirby game from HAL in 2026 for Switch 2. Just one more to hold us over. That is what I'm hoping for here, and I would love to revisit Planet Robobots or really any of the older Kirby games. Fire Emblem 4 Remake is one that is rumored to have been finished potentially even years ago from Intelligent Systems. I am starting to question this rumor because it's been so long. I think it was back in 2022. Emily Rogers had talked about it, and I'm starting to wonder, like, either they're just sitting on this game for like a historic amount of time, or maybe it got canceled, maybe it got reworked as a Switch 2 thing. We will have to wait and see. But if we're talking like late life Switch stuff, I feel like another Fire Emblem game definitely fits the bill, especially a remake. We got Echoes, Shadows of Valentia on 3DS in 2017 after the Switch came out. So if we get another Fire Emblem remake on Switch 1, maybe it comes out before Switch 2, maybe it comes out after, maybe it has some sort of enhancements. We'll have to wait and see. But I think, I mean, it's already been over 2 years since Engage, and usually, I mean, we usually get a Fire Emblem game about that cadence every 18 or 24 months. So we're definitely due. I think it's too early to see whatever the next mainline, like, new game is, because I think that will be safe for Switch 2. I think that's a perfect, like, 2026, 2027 release. But a remake of Fire Emblem 4 has been rumored for so long, and if it doesn't happen in this Nintendo Direct, I will probably give up hope for Fire Emblem 4 Remake even actually existing. But I do think it's finally time to see that. We had a rumor recently from PH Brazil that there is one more major kind of new entry in a niche franchise. I'll have this link down below. I talked about it in another video. This is where the video really opens up, and, you know, the sky could be the limit for what you think he actually means by that. I'm really hoping and coping for some sort of Tomodachi Life thing, right? Tomodachi Life is a niche franchise, but it also is a major thing that I think makes sense for the Switch 1 in 2025 as a new game. Everybody's predicting all these remakes and remasters, and I think that will be the bulk of what we see. But if we're getting a new game, like a new Switch 1 game, Tomodachi Life, I feel like really makes sense. There's also been some talk of a Pikmin spinoff. I could see that happening as well, honestly. Pikmin 4, obviously a big success for Nintendo. They want to keep growing that brand, as we've seen since Pikmin 4 release. I mean, they've been going hard on the Pikmin stuff, on the merch and the updates and stuff. So Pikmin spinoff, I could see that happening this year. Maybe that's what PH Brazil's alluding to. Kind of get a little stopgap Pikmin release while we wait for Pikmin 5 on the Switch 2. I'd be down for that. I wonder what they would do, though. I don't think it'd be a 2D puzzle game like Hey Pikmin. I think they would do something entirely different. Hopefully. I don't like Hey Pikmin very much. F-Zero is one that's, for a while there, we were talking about rumors of an F-Zero GX remaster. I think after F-Zero 99, there's definitely something coming. I just wonder, do they remake GX first, or do they just go straight into a new game on Switch 2? Or could a new F-Zero game be a Switch 1 game? I think that's a bad mistake. In general, I think releasing a new F-Zero thing this year, even if it is just GX HD, I know they're very different. What a weird decision it would be to release an F-Zero game the same year as Mario Kart 9. It just feels wrong to me, even if they're on different platforms. I don't know. I feel like you want to have F-Zero. Give it some space, man. I do think F-Zero is cooking. Maybe next year we see something from F-Zero. Zelda is one. We normally have an annualized Zelda release, and I guess this is another thing where it's like, well, Switch 1, Switch 2, which one will it be on? If it's Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, I think you do that on Switch 1, but you do it after the Switch 2 comes out, so that way all the Switch 2, early adopters will be hyped up to play Wind Waker in 4K or whatever. But outside of that, like the next Warriors game, Hyrule Warriors, I think that'd be on Switch 2, so Zelda, I would say, is unlikely, except for Wind Waker. I referenced Camelot earlier with Mario Sports. It'd be cool if Camelot got to do something else. Of course, Camelot originally made Golden Sun. What if they're making a Golden Sun 1 remake or even a new Golden Sun game? That'd be pretty cool. I think Camelot has a Switch 1 game. I don't know if it's a Mario Sports Mix kind of thing. They have, we have been seeing Nintendo do that at the end of the life cycle of the Wii and the 3DS with Mario Sports Mix and Superstars. I think we will see something akin to that, or maybe a Mario Baseball. I'd be down for a Mario Baseball. And when we look at the lineup right now, okay, Mario Kart 9 for Switch 2, that's going to happen. 3D Mario for Switch 2, that's going to happen. We don't have anything for Switch 1 in terms of Mario this year at all. I guess we had Donkey Kong in January, but I think there will be more than that. Maybe that's later in the year. Maybe you see Galaxy 2 and 3D Land come over. Maybe you see All-Stars return for the anniversary. I think they want to have one Mario, like actually titled Mario thing this year, and I think Mario Sports really is the perfect fit. I guess another adjacent thing that I could see happening, we're talking about all of these franchises, these dead franchises kind of being revived. I don't know if it'd be a new entry, but something like a Wario Land Shake It remaster or remake. Of course, Goodfeel originally made that game. We don't know the development timeline on Princess Peach Showtime, but given how Nintendo is known for sitting on games, I wouldn't be surprised if Princess Peach Showtime was done so far in advance that Goodfeel could have like a Wario Land Shake It remake done. I could totally believe that. Or Woolly World. Woolly World is one I've talked about a lot. I think Goodfeel, that's a good pick for like them having gotten a remaster done real quick, because they did Epic Yarn on 3DS late in that console's life. They did Yoshi and Poochie's Woolly World on 3DS as well. I think we see like Wario Land Shake It or Yoshi's Woolly World come back. Even if it's not announced in this direct, I think we'll see one of those this year. A big one I haven't talked about is Metroid Prime 2 and 3. It's gotta happen. I feel like this has to happen with how Nintendo more than ever is really seemingly focused on getting these franchises like caught up, like getting all of these entries on the Switch. We saw it happen with Pikmin, it happened with Bayonetta, it happened with Xenoblade, or I guess it's being finished for Xenoblade with X happening in March. Metroid Prime, we're going to get 2 and 3, even if it's just quick and dirty ports on the eShop. I think you have to put Metroid Prime 2 and 3 on the eShop before Metroid Prime 4 comes out, unless they weren't happy with the results of Pikmin 1 and 2 HD. If you remember, those came out like 3 or 4 weeks before Pikmin 4. Unless they were so disappointed in the results of that strategy, I would be shocked if Metroid Prime 2 and 3 don't happen at this point in time, and that could be a shadow drop. That would be a great pick for a shadow drop in this Nintendo Direct. Another new thing that I haven't touched on, I don't even know what this is, man. I played it and I don't know what it is, but we have that Nintendo Switch Online playtest, which is this entirely new IP, seemingly from EPD4, Roblox style thing where you build blocks and you build these towers, big multiplayer MMO Nintendo game. I mean, people want to say it's a Switch 2 thing, and maybe it will be mostly a Switch 2 thing, but the reality of it is, I played that on my Switch 1, which would indicate that it's probably a Switch 1 game. So maybe we see a new IP announced this late in the game. I don't know. That was a weird thing Nintendo did back in October with that Switch Online playtest, but maybe it's finally time to see that in a more proper way, if it's not going to be saved as some sort of Switch 2 feature, even though I'm sure it would also be on Switch 1. I mean, that was a weird thing they did, so maybe we see that here. Ultimately, though, I am just very excited to see more Nintendo games, even if it is a lot of remakes and remasters. If these are just things that are kind of paving the way for Switch 2 and, just showing that Nintendo will still support Switch 1 with some releases, that is very exciting. I mean, you look back to the 3DS in 2017, I think 2017 is one of the best years of 3DS. There were some incredible games that released that year, and even in 2018, there were some really good, high-quality things like WarioWare Gold and Luigi's Mansion 1. So I think people are ready to write off the Switch One, and I get that, but I think they have one more in them. One more, like, properly, like, very exciting Nintendo Direct. Even though all eyes are on the April 2nd Direct for Switch 2, I think the February showcase is actually going to be pretty exciting for Nintendo fans. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think of the February Direct? Do you think it's going to be a big one, or do you think it's going to be a stinker? I would like to get a conversation going down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and check out my Nintendo collecting channel at It's Amiibo. Until next time, folks, peace.